I guess we're here. We're live now. Beautiful. So, I'm back on the light side of the world. See the light? There's light here. And the light comes from, I don't know. Rises in the east. Says, yeah. Sun rises in the east, so it's rising. It's always rising here. In fact, Japan is called the land of the rising sun. Actually, I don't know how many of you know about it, but you ever hear of Lemuria, land of Mu? Well, anyway, everything from probably the Maoris in New Zealand all the way up to China, and then parts of the west coast of South America, and even probably some of the west coast of America, was all part of a culture called Lemuria. Anyway, just a tidbit. We can go in. That could be an entire podcast because it's just way too interesting. I mean, the truth is so much more interesting than the lies. The lies are just they're horrible. They're convoluted. They're painful and everything. Anyway, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday Night Live. For those of you on the dark side of the earth, and for those of us on the light side of the earth, it's good morning, everyone. So what I need to do is find questions, and then. All right, good morning, everyone. Let's see, are we all coming on board here? I can almost see. Okay, there, I'm starting to see. Yeah, there we go. A couple things I want to do, the normal announcements that I need to make to remind you all where we are. So as you know, Facebook has still decided that I am a persona non grata. And so they don't want me around. They don't like me. And it's okay because I feel exactly the same. So it's really a good relationship I have now with them. It's a better relationship than before where we were both faking it. So now it's real. We hate each other, and that's it. And so they won't let me back on, and I've done everything. So now we're just trying to get our getting to erase my page, take the page off there because we don't even need the page. It's not real. And someone else is still using my likeness to sell things. I don't sell things ever. Things to me are transient, meaningless. I mean, they're helpful here and there. I mean, it's nice to have things like cups, stuff. But I mean, I don't sell things or products. I don't sell products. Okay, so the only thing I try to do is wake us all up. Okay, it's time to wake up. And remember what Bud means in Sanskrit. It means to awaken. And so we all want to wake up. That's our goal. Now, but I would like to remind you all that, so we're not on Facebook anymore, but even though it's still there, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, but Instagram and what are the other ones? Instagram and YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and Twitter, X Twitter. And then, of course, on my drlodi.com, you go to the live and you can, or whatever. It's a Dr. It's / podcast. And all of these are turned into podcasts anyway. And you can replay them. They replay all of them, except TikTok doesn't replay. But you can, if it's really late and you're in Europe or in Africa and it's getting really late, just go to sleep and, you can watch it tomorrow. Okay. So anyway, that's that. And it's at Dr. Thomas Lodi, at Dr. Thomas Lodi, right? At all those places that I mentioned, platforms, except for the Twitter /X, which is at Dr. Thomas Lodi MD. Okay, that's the only one. Yeah, and so that's that. So we're gonna get to questions, and we're gonna do this. And my apologies for last week, but it was just one of those things. I really apologize. I hate missing these. That's only the second one I've missed in a couple of years now, so I don't want to ever miss again. All right, so it's really important to me, and I hope you guys feel the same. Anyway, the other thing I want to mention is that in the U.S., the oases were expanding, and so I need some doctors. So if you know any doctors who would like to learn, train. I will train them, and we will make them part of the team, the healing team, because it's a team. It's always a team. It's never you know the doctor is the you know king or queen. It's not that way, right? It's part of a team. Um, yeah, I mean, we have a fantastic team. Lymphatic therapist, certified lymphatic therapist, kinesiologist. Darren, he's guy's incredibly brilliant. I'm going to do a series of podcasts with him, where I think we're starting next week, and you're going to just see the incredible relevance of moving this body around, and it's the consequences for health and to get rid of CFCs. There's some simple things like, 70 seconds of stair climbing, 70 seconds increase doubles the natural killer cell. We have the studies to show that doubles the natural killer cells, which you want to have around. And also, we look at things like grip strength. Grip strength correlates with longevity, with not cardiovascular, which you would think, right? Anyway, but Darren's goes into all that stuff. We're going to do some of those. Very, very important. So we have that. We have chefs, health educators. We have colon hydrotherapists, hyperthermia therapists, which have to be ICU nurses or critical care nurses of some sort. Why? Because when you get the body hot, heart rate goes up and all that sort of thing, and they have to be mildly sedated. But it's very important to be to get your body high at a high temperature like that. So it's the closest you can do to mimic fever, because fever is the ultimate, and I'll use the word because I never use it except in this case, cure. There's two cures, and they're both handed down by God. Okay, directly. No, cannot intervene. Humans cannot intervene. Number one, it's called fasting. Why? The reason I say it's handed down by God is because all creatures, when they are ill, stop eating. Period. And why do they do that? Because they're still connected to God via this divine web called instinct. And remember, your parents, my parents, and our children were kicked out of the paradise of instinct, probably by the age of 3 or 4. All right. And what are those phrases that we heard and repeat and heard and repeat and heard and repeat? It's no, stop, don't. No, stop, don't. That's all we say to kids. I mean, I love you, blah, blah, blah. That was really good. No, stop, don't. Anyway, in the end, we're kicked out and we're not allowed to be instinctual. Don't sit like that. Come on, little boys don't cry. And pretty soon, what do we have? We have really good little American boys and girls, or really good little German boys and girls, or really good Chinese boys and girls. Okay, so we enculturate our children and we turn them into the opposite of instinct. They have to learn how to respond. Pretty terrible. Pretty terrible. Because God gives us these instincts. And, I can't find flaws in God, what God does. I haven't found any. In fact, I was comparing, as you know, I always talk about this, comparing a tomato to tomato sauce and see, okay, which one is better for health? Let's define health. Let's look at this one. At the end, you'll come up to one conclusion, that the tomato was perfect and this is far from perfect. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. So we're looking for doctors. So if you are or you know of doctors who are the main what do you call it, criteria criteria for working in the US with us is number one, you have to be well trained in the fundamentals, basics of medical science, and you trained, you understand, and I think internal medicine's good, family practice is good, but even OBGYN would be good, of course. Any specialty that looks at the whole person and works with the whole person. But anyway, that's a fundamental training. And then secondly, you have to be done with Rockefeller. Done with Rockefeller. Done. Finished. would rather be a farmer, would rather be a plumber, anything but to continue outright poisoning and lying to people. So if you're done, if that would be a really important criteria. I mean, that's absolutely necessary. So then, absolutely, let's do it. And you've never worked in integrative oncology, we'll train. I'll train. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it. I'm looking. So tell them to contact me on my email. On my website. I don't know how you do that. Anyway, or at an Oasis of Healing. How would you contact me? Oh, hello@drlodi.com. Hello@drlodi.com. That's the main thing on my website, and that from there we'll take it from there. If you're interested. The other one we're looking for is health educators, people that have had a training, have had background in nutrition or what else? Nutrition, or maybe a former nurse who went out and studied nutrition and things like that. But it's not just nutrition. It's a health educator. And that would really be to teach our curriculum. We've developed a curriculum over the years called the School of Life that teaches us how to live. Why do we need to know how to live? They forgot to include it. Can you imagine? I was looking over the high school curriculum and they forgot to mention how do you live? Add, subtract. Well, we don't even need that anymore, right? We got computers, so we don't add or subtract. Spelling, forget it. You just look it up. Yeah. And by the way, you don't have to even write. You don't even listen. We are living in such incredible times. I can't tell you how incredible it is. We're now at the point where we don't have to write out the really difficult word of YOU. Nah, we just put you. Sure. And forget that preposition. What is it? Oh, a for, F-O-R. Just put a for. So, for you. So, I mean, what are they going to teach in school now? They don't teach math, and they don't teach reading and writing. I know. How to follow directions. The bell rings, stand up. You got to go to the bathroom, hold your hand. Hold your hand up. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Anyway, I wish I were being facetious, but I'm not. Sadly, tragically. Anyway, so the School of Life, by the way, the School of Life, which teaches us what our body is. What is it? What is it made of, And I like to remind people what they don't really know. Hi there, everyone. So fantastic you're all here. But I like to remind people that about the incredible body that we're living in. Is this on? Yeah. I guess it's on. Yeah. The incredible body we're living in, because just think about it. You do nothing. You sit on your couch all day long, and the only time you get up is to go to the bathroom or to grab some chips. Your heart's going to beat about 100,000 times that day. And whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not, even if you're sitting around, you're anywhere from 4 to 5 liters of blood being pumped through your body every minute, So put a day on that. Now, how about the breathing? How about the fact of 36 septillion chemical reactions every second going on in your body? How about the fact that every cell has 1 billion chemical reactions going on every second? 1 billion every second. All right. And they're all coordinated and all that. Okay. So when you understand this, you go, wow, how does this happen? Okay. It happens listen, the software is there. Software is called God. God is the fabric of existence, the intelligence of all things. And if you don't think there's intelligence out there, just take a look. Look at the stars. They keep showing up in the exact same place every time. And I can look at an almanac and I can tell you when sun's going to rise next Thursday, and it will rise at that time. So it's not just order, it's precision. And I can't find any did you see any plugs out there? What's plugging it all in? Nothing. It's the fabric of existence. It's called intelligence. Anyway, so that's how the body is. That's again what the body is. So, but it needs certain substances. It needs energy, and it needs certain substances, and we call these substances nutrients. So, okay, well, where do we get these nutrients? And then we'll get into that. What are nutrients? Okay, and then We teach people how to go shopping. We take them to Whole Foods, or we take no, we don't go Whole Foods anymore. We go to Sprouts or something. And we teach them, take them to a place where they do have some options of real food, human food, and we teach them how to shop, how to read labels. My advice for reading a label is don't. If it's got a label, throw it away as far as you can. Because if it's got a label, that means they're hiding something, right? You don't need a label for a banana. You don't even need a label for a pork chop, you know? Well, I would. I wouldn't know the difference between a pork chop and a lamb chop. I mean, but anyway, but you'd get the idea. It's a piece of dead muscle. I mean, that would be pretty obvious. It's dead muscle with some bone, so we would know that. So we don't really need a label, but actually we do nowadays, don't we? Because what are we doing? By the time that animal got to that stage where they slaughtered it, what did they give it? I was talking to one of our students. We don't call them patients, we call them students. One of our students who lives on a turkey, or she was raised on a turkey farm, and they have a turkey farm, and all of her brothers and sisters have turkey farms, and I think they raise like hundreds of thousands of them. And I asked her, "Is it? Do you have better business during Thanksgiving?" She said, "No, it's the same all year round. I mean, I guess every 10 weeks, 20 weeks, they sell them." And she said, so we talked a little more and found out that they give it all kinds of injections and feed with antibiotics and with hormones and all that sort of thing. And she was kind of like proud of it. So anyway, yeah. So you would really need a label for that turkey to tell you what's in there, really, but they don't. Same with the bananas now. They're all genetically modified. Not genetically modified, but they're hybrid. They're hybrid, and I don't know what they're using in terms of poisons, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. All that stuff. Because organic. If anyone ever tells you it's way too expensive to use organic, you just remind them how expensive it is to spend just one night in the ICU. And if you think this food doesn't taste good, try the food in the ICU. It just doesn't quite cut it. All right. But that's where you'll be eating if you continue to eat this way. Anyway, if it's not organic, by the way, organic used to mean and will always mean the biochemistry of carbon compounds. Carbon is the basic element that underlies all organic substances, which are organisms, biological entities. But then organics somehow in our culture came to mean that which is not poisoned, where they don't put herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. What else do they put in? What other kind of side? Anyway, so they put all those in. So the question is, I don't want to eat organic. It's too expensive. Well, here's the thing. If it's not organic, that means, like I said, fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, which rhymes with what? Suicide, genocide, homicide. Okay. Well, anyway. So the other thing is this: if you're eating organic foods and they're not processed, they are extremely nutrient dense. And if they're extremely nutrient dense, it doesn't take a lot of it to satisfy your nutrient requirements. And therefore, you're not going to have this gnawing, free-floating hunger that we all have. All right, always hungry. I just want to nibble on something. Because remember, what do we like about eating? We like smelling, tasting, chewing, and swallowing. Smelling, tasting, chewing, and swallowing. Smelling, tasting, chewing, and swallowing for a little while. And then we have pain in our stomachs and we say, oh. Unless somebody comes by and says, are there any room for dessert? And you go, oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, tragic. Anyway, that's what we like to do. Smell, taste, chew, and swallow. So anyway, in this school of life, we'll learn how all that sort of thing. We also learn how the body keeps itself clean. What's sleep about? What happens during sleep? In other words, you learn how this thing works. That we're this gift, this wonderful Earth suit. Remember, this is the suit. If you want to hang out on this planet, you want to get around on this planet, you need this particular suit, right? You've got to augment it if you go to the moon, but not here. You're okay for now. I don't know. What they're doing to getting rid of the rainforests. We don't need those. getting rid of the oceans. Yeah, we don't need all that algae, phytoplankton. We don't need them. Nah. Anyway, so that's the thing. So, and the School of Life, by the way, is one school you want to graduate. So anyway, I'd like to have health educators, people with some kind of background and who also live the lifestyle. Very important to live the lifestyle, because you can't teach that which you are not, right? I couldn't teach someone to be athletic and not smoke if I sat on the couch all day smoking cigarettes. So in other words, if I'm not that which I want to teach, then I will not be able to teach it. And anyone who's a parent knows that children don't listen to what you say. They listen, observe, and become what you are. Okay? So that's that. So looking for that. We're also looking for health educators in Thailand as well. So anyone interested in moving to Thailand, again, drop me a line, hello at drlodi.com. All right, so let's get on with it. I'm sorry I took too much time with that. Okay, so what are these questions today? So this is from the website. It says, hello, I'm interested in buying C-Link or C-Lex or C-Max, but the site I can find it on states it's not for human consumption, for research only. I'm in the UK. The site is Biolabs UK. Many thanks for your question. All right. Yeah, Aura. So for sure, because the Fraud and Death Association, in I think in all countries now, they want to eliminate that which is really works. I don't believe they ever with the moon. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we had the technology in 1969 to do anything close to that. So yeah. Anyway, let me not get distracted. So C-Link and C-Max, just for those of you who may not have heard, they're both peptides, and you can actually get them in a nasal form, or you can do them injected with a little insulin syringe. But they're both peptides that are normally produced in the body, but they help restore cognition for anybody, like even in traumatic brain injury, things like that, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. They're very, very helpful. And of course, if someone's just having trouble concentrating because they're living in a crazy world that's getting crazier every nanosecond, then and it's hard to keep, stay focused. This is helpful. And again, it's not a drug. It's just a peptide that our body normally makes, right? So it's fantastic in that regard. And the C-Link is more for, it's also an anxiolytic. In other words, if a lot of your cognitive decline or slowness or impairment is due to anxiety, then it does both. So it's really good. That's what the C-Link is. But of course, so the Fraud and Death Association in each country has limited, as said, no, we can't use it. We can't. It's not proven. It's not proven. Like I don't know, some of the injections from some of the companies. I don't know what they call mother RNA, mother RNA. Moderna and Pfizer. Is it Pfizer or Poser? Poser. Anyway, don't really want to say that word. So anyway, so those are not proven, or they're proven. Yeah, they're proven. But anyway, these peptides that the body makes. How many peptides does the body make? Just under 300,000. And what are they? Well, they're how the body communicates. It's how cells communicate to other cells. There are different ways. There are sex hormones or cholesterol-based hormones. And then there are peptides and proteins, are all ways in which the body communicates within itself to maintain function and homeostasis and all that sort of thing, right? So growth hormone is a protein. Insulin is a peptide. There's lots of them. So these are the way the body communicates with itself. So we've now been able to duplicate them. And by the way, peptides and proteins are just simply amino acids strung together with what they call peptide bonds. And so if it's 50 or less, it's a peptide. 100 or more, it's a protein. That's it. So anyway, it's really good. And they're going to say it's just for research only. So this is one study that you might want to be a subject on. Another question here. Just watched your podcast. You said metacalfine. Cannot spell it. This is by K. So metacalfine. So what I'm thinking that you might have meant is metenkephalin, which is also a protein. I mean a peptide. Okay. Now, yeah. So anyway, they also call it MET5, MET5, because it's basically methionine, which is an amino acid. It's one of the essential amino acids, and it is proenkephalin, which is an endogenous opioid that the body makes. But anyway, so the adrenal glands make this 5 amino acid. I mean, can you imagine? It's only 5 amino acids. It's pretty amazing, and it. I mean, it's crazy. It's what? Tyrosine, glycine, phenylalanine, and one other one. What's the other one? I forget. So, and methionine. Yeah, stupid. So, anyway, this 5 amino acid peptide produced by the adrenal gland actually is kind of like the loop between the neuro, meaning brain, endocrine, right, which is usually like your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, which control all the other hormones underneath in the body, and the immune system. Okay, so it has an immune modulatory role. Well, a pretty important one too. Not pretty important, extremely important. And it is one of the problems I think we have when we're working with people with CFCs. Just a moment. CFCs, what's that? CFCs, chronically fermenting cells. What the heck is that? Well, that's what Rockefeller calls, that zodiac sign between Gemini and Leo. It's symbolized by a crab. The crab kind of walks sideways. Yeah, okay. That's what we're talking about. Anyway, so that word we don't use because it's painful. It hurts me to hear it. It hurts me to say it. It hurts me to read it. I don't like it. I like what's really there. We have chronically fermenting cells because they are doing what? They are adapting and surviving. Adapting and surviving what? A situation where their biological needs are not being met. So they're surviving. Okay, so the way they were designed. Okay, anyway. So as it turns out, one of the things that CFCs do and parasites do is they modify the immune system so that it can't recognize them. Okay, and they do that in many, many ways. But probably one of the most powerful ways is in immunology, the way the immune system works. By the time the innate immune system. For example, there's 2 monocyte-derived cells called dendritic cells, and another one called macrophages. They gobble up tumor or other microorganism type things. They gobble them up and take a piece of it and give it to this naive T cell. And they use the word naive T cell for a T cell that was highly trained, but it doesn't yet have a target. And they give it the picture of the target. So now it goes after it. Now it knows what to do. So it becomes an activated killer T cell. Okay? Well, if our killer T cell system just went full blast, we would lose our hair, we'd get rash, we get sick, so there has to be a modulatory effect, an on-off. There's that's the on button, that's the off button, and you got to keep kind of fine-tuning it. When you get good at driving, you learn how to drive, and you learn how to. People play video games. I'm sure I've never gotten. I can't. But anyway, I know I've seen the people. They're really good at modulating, and they know how to move things and all that. So anyway, that's what it's all about. So every system in our body has an on shift, on um, on button, off button. Okay, modulation. Okay, so one of the ways, so the way in which the cytotoxic T cells are modulated is something called T regulatory cells, which are part of the T helper system, the T4, T4, T8, right? T8 are the active ones going to kill. T4 are helping them, preparing them, getting them ready. Well, the T4 can turn into a T regulatory, which turns down, shuts off the ability of the T8 to kill. So the parasites, a lot of parasites and CFCs recognize that, and what they do is they increase the T regulatory cells, T regs, so that they're like this, and the T8s are like this. So it's basically shutting them down. It can shut off the immune response, and that's what it does. Well, guess what? This 5 amino acid peptide produced by the adrenal glands called metenkephalin, or MET5, 5 because there's 5 amino acids, stops the enhancement of the T regulatory cells and restores a balance, homeostasis. Okay, pretty cool. All right. Now, it does it by binding to the opiate receptors on the immune cells. And when we're talking about immune cells, we're talking about macrophages, dendritic cells. We're talking about T killer cells. All the different cells, and they all have different opioid receptors. Because guess what? This is just a little aside, but I think it's very important to keep in mind. Do you realize that anything humans make, aka artificial, has one function? Think about it. You build a transistor, it does what it does. You build a capacitor, it does what it does. And I'm talking about electrical parts. A hammer, it's meant to hammer. A pulley, it's the hook pulley. A wheel, we didn't invent them, we discovered them. Anyway, the things that humans make have usually one purpose. Sometimes you can get two purposes out of them, but like the hammer, and then the back of the hammer to pull the nail out. Yeah, okay. But everything that God makes has multitude of functions, a multitude of functions. Like for example, hormones. We think of testosterone as the hormone for libido and secondary sexual characteristics such as pubic hair and growth of genitalia and things like that. But it's more. That's only one. The heart has more receptors. Brain, muscles. Without testosterone, you can't maintain your strength. You can't maintain your muscle tone. Without testosterone, testosterone and its derivatives, the other androgens, are also necessary on all kinds of organs. It's amazing, including the autonomic nervous system. Breasts. It's crazy. So it has multiple functions. Same with estrogen. Same with all of them. Prolactin. Doesn't matter. So that's it. And the way they work, no one's going to ever understand it, because in this situation with these other factors, it does this, and it has an opposite kind of effect over in this other situation. So should I get rid of it because it's doing that? No, but I need this. So you can't figure it out. You're not going to figure it out. No one's going to figure it out ever. Stop trying to figure it out. Do what? Restore balance. And what happens when you have balance? Then the divine intelligence kicks in, and you've got perfection. You've got perfection. All we can do is try to restore balance and know that it's intrinsic intelligence, divine intelligence will make it work perfectly. Okay? That's what we do. Somebody said, wow, I'm trying really hard to follow you. So sorry, keep listening. It'll make sense. It will make sense. Sorry, I don't mean to be so obtuse, but anyway, I'll keep saying, and I'm going to assume that you're going to you'll get it. Don't worry. I'll repeat this 1,000 times so you'll get it, because I repeat myself all the time. Anyway, so just like in nature, what I'm saying, the point is that it has multiple effects. So anyway, so what we if you can give this peptide to people who have chronically fermenting cells, the reason that's so important is because the tumor microenvironment is such that when a macrophage enters it ready to eat up the tumor, it gets turned into a tumor-associated macrophage and starts working for the tumor. Same with neutrophils, same with the fibroblasts that are part of it already. They become tumor-associated fibroblasts. All these cells that are um, have a specific purpose get changed. Why? Because the tumor microenvironment is very high in acid and very low in oxygen. And those two physical characteristics of that environment change the whole function of these cells, because now these cells must do something else to try to restore balance. Okay, and what they're doing actually turns out to be helpful for the tumor growth. Okay, and so how do we modify that tumor microenvironment? Because that's what happens with anybody. No matter what's going on, you're being treated with what group of therapies, and you get to a point where you can't get past that point. That's because the tumor microenvironment is not allowing the immune system to do its job. And if you don't change that, you can't win. So you've got to do what? You've got to make sure you've got to get a very qualified, experienced biological dentist to make sure you don't have any sources of chronic inflammation that are shutting off different meridians and all that. I mean, it's very, very important that you've got to get rid of all the other toxins in your body and microorganisms that you don't want there, and parasites, so that your body is no longer dealing with that and your immune system can get back to work doing what you wanted to do, what we wanted to do. Okay, so we got to get rid of all those things, and then we can change the tumor microenvironment too by using metenkephalin. So I'm pretty sure that's what you were talking about. METENK EPHALIN. Yeah. Okay. Metenkephalin. Or you can just put in MET5. Okay. Very, very important. And everyone needs to, anyone who's got chronically fermenting cells should be on that. And, very, very, very important. So I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. Ivermectin, how long can it be used safely? Well, remember, 250 million plus, 250 plus million people in the world have onchocerciasis, which is also known as river blindness, and they take ivermectin probably for 10, 15 years or more. That's what we so far. So that's a pretty good clinical trial, right? 250 million people over 10 to 15 years. I haven't seen any clinical trials better than that. So what is this one here? This is from Melanie, and she was diagnosed with a pulmonary embolus, which means the blood clot in her lung, and it sprayed the left lung and right lung, mostly covering the left. She'd been traveling in her car for border to border for 3 weeks straight, 8-hour drive each way, no breaks. And then she stayed with her parents, but they just got their second round of the bioweapon. I have been on Eliquis since then. I see an oncologist every 4 months who says I must remain on it for life. I do not need to. I am healthy and have eating plant-based diet since 2017. Can you advise? Yeah, certainly. Well, Eliquis is part of a it's a group of drugs. There's a group of drugs that try to prevent blood clots from forming. Okay, and the old standard was heparin, which is normally actually produced in our body. And then they got low molecular weight heparin, so they could do it instead of having to give you like 5 to 10,000 units subcutaneously twice a day or 3 times a day. They could give you this one shot a day, and that's why they made it low molecular weight. And then the other one is warfarin. Warfarin is basically Coumadin, warfarin, which is, um, it's rat poison. Okay. And of course, you can't eat anything healthy like plants because it's got vitamin K, and that will stop it, turn off its effectiveness. Anyway, all of those are very dangerous. They're very dangerous because the risk is that you're doing something unnatural. So, like with the Eliquis, for example, it blocks factor XA, um, and XA, or 10A. It's actually 10A, but there are multiple factors involved in blood clotting. Okay, it doesn't just on or off. There's multiple factors up and down, and this just turns it off because if you don't allow 10A, if you inhibit that, then the clot won't form. Okay, so they do that, and it can be really helpful. And you can take it orally, which makes it better than, or makes it more convenient than having to take a shot or something like that. The problem is though, because you're blocking the reason we have a system like that is because our body is continually, making new blood vessels and breaking down blood clots and making blood clots, and because we need that. That's kind of what we need, that modulation that we talked about, on off, on off. So anyway, it's got that danger in it, right? So anyway, there's three kinds of pharmaceutical agents. There's the thrombolytics, the antiplatelets, and the anticoagulants. Anyway, thrombolytics are they're usually really done well in an acute situation. So someone has a heart attack, which is blockage of the coronary artery, and they got a big blood clot in there. They can inject plasminogen activating factor, TPH, and tissue plasminogen activator. And that plasminogen is, this side, the fibrin side, thrombin side, makes blood clots. The plasminogen side breaks them down. Again, modulating. Okay. Well, if you're making more than you're breaking down, you're going to wind up with a clot. So you've got to increase so a thrombolytic agent would be, they would inject that in the emergency room. You're having a myocardial infarction, also known as heart attack, and they inject that. You can dissolve the clot immediately, and that will help them. And a lot of people's lives have been saved. They're doing that. Problem is, you could wind up getting a bleed in your brain, a bleed in your kidney, a bleed anywhere. That's the problem with these kinds of drugs. Okay, but in the short term, there's not many choices. The antiplatelets are like aspirin or other ones, and the anticoagulants are the same. They interfere with the coagulation system, but they still don't take care of the existing blood clot, the thrombus. So how do you do that? You've got to turn on the plasminogen system. Okay, so remember, thrombin makes blood clots. Plasminogen gets rid of them, dissolves them. So how do we increase that? Well, there's one natural substance made from earthworms called lumbrokinase. It's also called earthworm powder enzymes, earthworm fibrinolytic enzymes. Anyway, it works quite well. It's been used for thousands of years in China, Japan, Korea, all that. Used for those things, to thin the blood, to keep circulation going, and all that. So, and there's even an ancient Chinese publication on this as Ben Cao. I don't know. I never learned Chinese, but anyway. It said that it's used to invigorate the body, to increase blood flow, all that, to stop stasis. And it's been used like that for a long time. Turns out, what does it do? It activates plasminogen. That's what it does. Why is that important? Well, it's important in many things, because when people have chronically fermenting cells, they have a part of the whole process is they have an increased tendency to form blood clots. In fact, a lot of times that's how we can find out someone had CFCs in the first place, is because they had all these excess blood clots. Or they had a blood clot. Yeah, pulmonary embolus or something, and they didn't know it. And it turns out that actually helps having blood clots here and there actually helps tumor progression. Why? Because if you have a blood clot, you'll have an area where there's no blood flow. And if there's no blood flow, there'll be low oxygen. That low oxygen will stimulate a whole set of enzymes and factors to make tumors grow. Okay? By having low oxygen, hypoxia. And then you get the hypoxia inducible factors, which turn on the whole process. So by taking lumbrokinase on a continual basis, you can prevent that from happening. And actually, it'll be really helpful in preventing metastatic spread and growth and all that sort of thing. All right. And there's another one called nattokinase. And again, that's made from the Bacillus subtilis, which is a bacteria that's used to ferment soybeans, and it's called natto. And that enzyme is associated with Japanese. One of the reasons Japanese live longer than all of us, and because it keeps the blood thin and moving. Very, very important. So even if you don't have CFCs, you can still take these things a couple times a day, empty stomach, and they're good. Okay, they're very healthy. They keep your blood flowing because we all have a tendency to blood clot. We have thick blood. If you draw your blood, if you go have your blood drawn, you're going to find out it's usually very dark and sluggish, right? And all you got to do is mix it with some ozone and see how red it gets. Yeah. And do a fast and see how red it gets. Yeah. Anyway, we could all use that. So the answer to your question, is there an alternative? There certainly is. They're both nattokinase and lumbrokinase. And you can do them together because they have some, although they have a lot of similar activities, they also have a couple of distinct things. Like, for example, nattokinase has been found to dissolve the spike protein, kind of very important there. And the safety profile is incredible, extremely safe. The other thing that that lumbrokinase does, and nattokinase, is the biofilm associated infections, right? Biofilm is kind of like a film produced by microorganisms to protect themselves, right? And so anyway, I mean, because they've done studies where they've been able to use like nattokinase or lumbrokinase with an antibiotic, and they get a much better effect. Now, you don't necessarily need antibiotics. You can use these substances, get a person to cleanse, and use therapies like ozone, vitamin C, intravenous ozone, intravenous vitamin C. You can use intravenous colloidal silver if you have the right stuff. Argentin 23 from Natural Immunogenics is the only one I would ever inject into someone. You can also inject extracts of garlic called allicin. Amazing. So you don't necessarily have to use drugs that kill, because they're going to kill the good guys in your gut, which are essential for your ability to get through this whole problem anyway. So it makes 0 sense. No, not zero. -5 cents. Okay, yeah. What's our next question? Hi, what could be the reason for someone having massive amounts of hair loss when they treat parasites? I know someone who has confirmed parasite problem and cannot actually kill them because they lose too much hair as soon as they start treating. Do you have any ideas on how to stop this so they can proceed? Is it inflammatory? Well, yeah, I mean, it is definitely inflammatory and causing problems like that. However, here's what we have to do, and this is one of the ways that we have to envision all therapies or methodologies that we're going to use to restore health, and that is the risk-benefit ratio. Okay, so here's the thing. So if I was full of parasites and I was going to probably die, then I'd say, well, if I take the antiparasitics, I'm going to lose my hair. Okay, so I'll lose my hair for now, get rid of the parasites, and then it'll grow back. Okay, it's not like a permanent loss. It's not like male pattern baldness where you actually destroy the ability of the hair to grow back. Okay, so it's a whole different thing. But that's what I would do. I would say, I like to stay alive and have the problem with no hair. And then while I'm alive, then I'll go back to getting that. So that's what I would do. That's how I would look at it, right? And also there are different types of antiparasitics. You could try different combinations. But I wouldn't let the hair get in the way. because if that's the problem, lose it for now. It'll grow back. Remember, our goal is not to look good in a coffin. That's not our goal. If you aren't able to get all the medicines to kill parasites, is it even worth it to try to do any of it? Yeah, but get at least two or three. You can do that. You can go to niclosam.com and get the niclosamide. You can go online and find ivermectin, Indian companies out of India. You can get fenbendazole easily. So you can get three probably. And if you got those three, go for it. Okay, so good evening. I had a spell put on me called Hashimoto's last year. Remember, being diagnosed is to have a spell put on you. March. Shortly after all my labs, we continued to do stool samples and food sensitivity tests. Found that I had Candida and Klebsiella pneumoniae. I did CDS for 4 weeks, and it no longer shows Candida in my labs or any other bacteria other than Klebsiella. Now I've done 3 months of ivermectin and fenbendazole. I still have severe leg inflammation and fatigue. How do I know when the parasites are gone? Where do I go from here? Okay. Well, anyway, you need a more comprehensive program than that. Something to understand about microorganisms is that, there's a school of thought which is, although seems to be in the majority, is really not. Maybe it is. Most people don't really study, don't like to learn, but it's called the monomorphism perspective on microorganisms versus the polymorphism perspective on organisms. Meaning that the polymorphism says that organisms have multiple different shapes and forms through their life cycle. And that's obvious when you look at a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, or a moth, or as they say in New York, moth. Yeah, I remember I had a friend, moth. You couldn't say moth. It was moth. What was another word? Coffee. Yeah, coffee. I like it. Actually, sounds cool. Coffee. It makes me want to drink a cup of coffee. But what was the other one? My favorite, Breffic. Let's go have Breffic. All right. Anyway, how did I get off on that? What was that question again? Oh, so the thing about these organisms is this: that what we're calling Klebsiella pneumoniae, we're calling, E. coli, we're calling, these are gram negatives or gram positive cocci, which are okay, and then we have funguses and viruses and all. It turns out that depending on the environment, the same organism can become. Now, a guy named Underling looked at things called protists, and protists, which was what he called, and other people have different names for it, but it's supposed to be the fundamental primordial microorganism that will change and become what it needs to be in the environment. Okay, and that's the heart of polymorphism. So what I see today, and then also the other idea is this, keep in mind with polymorphism, is that the organisms are not there causing the problem. They're there cleaning it up. They're eating it. That's what they feed on. They feed on poison dying cells. They go in there and they clean up the mess. Completely different than the fraudulent Louis Pasteur theory, also known as the germ theory, which, by the way, morphed into something called the disease model, which, by the way, is the fundamental basis of allopathy, which is MDs, medical doctors, and nurse practitioners, and physician's assistants, and even naturopaths, osteopaths. What's the other one? What's the other path? Allopath, osteopath. Why? Why? Because they got at the end, they got the suffix path stands for pathology. Pathology implies something went wrong. And that is blasphemy. Nothing ever goes wrong in biology except for our interventions. Okay? The body, biological organisms are always doing what's necessary. It's called adaptive physiology, adaptive biochemistry, adaptive biology. There's no pathology. It's not possible. God does not make things that are capable of doing damage to the organism. Okay, I qualify that. Yeah, the white blood cells are designed to damage certain microorganisms, etc. Yeah, so that on a very small level, in small different areas, we have to look at it that way. But in whole, the design of these divine machines that we have, and by the way, birds have, owls have, cows have. We're not like unique. We're not unique. And remember, the covenant that God made between after the flood was not just between we humans and God. It was between all creatures and God. Okay, so that's the covenant. Okay, so all creatures, great and small. Anyway, so now, I mean, Monica, we could get into your question really in detail. The Hashimoto's, first of all, is nonsense, ridiculous, absurd word because some guy named Hashimoto discovered it, like Ewing's sarcoma. And I mean, who the hell would want their name on a unfortunate situation? They think that's going to immortalize them. Nothing immortalizes anyone. You know, this guy Hashimoto and Ewing and what else? All of them. They need to go back and read Ecclesiastes. Tell them, if you ever run into these guys, I mean, if you're on a time machine, you go back in time. Tell them, say, listen, read Ecclesiastes. Okay, it's crazy. Anyway, what we need to do, and listen, Monica, this is what we need to do. You had a low thyroid function, just like everybody else that I've met, except for a few, and that's because of a iodine deficiency. And there are also people that have hyperthyroid condition, and again, iodine deficiency. These immune irregularities that we see, or let's say adaptive biochemistry that's going on, is an attempt to restore the balance in a system that doesn't have one of its fundamental ingredients called iodine. So it's doing all sorts of things to try to do that. All right. So if it's a high level of output of thyroid, and it's got these immune adaptive patterns that are different from a healthy pattern, a healthy homeostasis, then they call it Graves. If it's low functioning, they call it Hashimoto's. It's the same thing. All right. But that's all related to the fact of a nutrient deficit called iodine. Iodide and iodine. Okay. Now, in terms of having, you could test your stool and find nothing there and still be loaded with all sorts of parasites. Or you could test your stool and find 2 parasites, but really have about 12 that you're not being able to find because they don't hang out in the colon or the intestines. They might be in the lung. They might be in the heart. They might be in the brain. They might be in the kidney. Might be in the liver, ovary, uterus, testicle. They're anywhere and everywhere. So looking for them is just, it serves no purpose. Just assume you have them. Okay, they are there. They are here. So a thorough cleanse using 3 or 4 or 5 anti-parasitics along with a couple of 2 or 3 anti-fungals. 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or 4 weeks on, 1 week off, 4 weeks on, 1 week off, several times. How do you know when they're done? Because you'll be feeling wonderful again. You'll be back to normal. Okay, and then you can go get an energy test, an energy assessment, acupuncture meridian assessment, or you can do some. Anyone who's really good with muscle testing will be able to do it. These are to test these things, are the to determine whether there's a problem. Most of these are so subtle that all of our Western equipment just simply doesn't have the ability to detect it. So we have to use other ways. We have to look at energy systems. Okay, and then remember, you got to now. In addition to taking all these things, you have to restore healthy biome. So you got to take probiotics rectally and orally, and you want to make sure you get akkermansia, which also is going to help repair leaky gut. You want to use glutamine. You can use aloe. There are multiple things you can use to help the actual gut, but there's nothing better than not eating. Okay, because I would use all these things and use these like we were saying, glutamine and all that, and the probiotics and all that stuff. And then they need food to eat, so you got to be eating what? Human food. What is human food? Oh, my, see, Genesis 1:29. Let me see. Let me go back there and read what it says. Okay, that's it. Original diet resulted in, I don't know, 900, almost 1,000 years. That's pretty good. And we're not talking about old sitting, old with long stringy beard, sitting in a rocking chair and slobbering. We're talking about some humans that were vigorous, running up and down mountains. Think about it. So anyway, but so if you're eating that food, you will therefore be able to raise healthy organisms that will help you live. So we need that. And then you can fast. Fasting will always allow cleansing. Fasting, when you rest an organ, it heals. Why? Designed by God. Now, have you noticed when I turn off my car, it's not healing itself? But I'm pretty smart, right? Humans are really, really intelligent. In fact, remember, humans are the intelligent ones, and those dumb animals, they don't know anything. They don't know anything. We are intelligent. How did we come to that conclusion? How did the humans come to the conclusion that they are intelligent and the animals are stupid? I don't understand it. Have you ever seen a squadron, what do they call it? A squad of fighter pilots come anywhere near a flock of birds? No. I want you to go in the woods, into the jungle, where there are no humans, never have been humans, and try to find some garbage, trash. Doesn't exist. Why? Nature doesn't produce garbage or trash. Everything excreted or secreted by one organism is necessary for another organism. It is incomprehensibly complex and divinely designed, engineered. So they're stupid, we're smart, we're intelligent. Now, they live in harmony with nature and their surroundings. And they only damage that which they need to do to live, not for fun. Now, what are we doing? Well, we're finding that we're at the point now where it's actually safer to eat out of your toilet than to eat out of the oceans. We're ripping up the rainforest, and that's how we absorb. That's how we. That's part of the carbon cycle, right? CO2 is absorbed by forests and the plankton, the phytoplankton that sit on the surface of the ocean. We used to sit on the surface of the ocean until we came around. So anyways, and now we're complaining that there's too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which probably may not be true, just may not be true. But the only reason I say that is because the experts say, and you know what experts are. Those are people that work for other people to say things that are not true. That's what an expert. We have to define expert. Anyway, but If it were true that there was too much carbon dioxide, then what should we do? Plant trees. Restore the phytoplankton to the oceans. And what does that do? That grabs the carbon dioxide and does what it's supposed to do. Because what do plants breathe in? Carbon dioxide. What do they breathe out? Oxygen. But we're smart, and the animals are stupid. So I'm still. If anybody can help me understand that, I would really. I'd be shocked, but I'd be appreciative. Anyway, so let's look for some more questions here. Okay, here's one. Jackie, my mother recently died from breast and ovarian CFCs. She had the BRCA gene. All the doctors in the UK suggested I have a double mastectomy. I am 36 years old and I haven't had children yet. Please, can you advise me on the best preventative measure? Question 2, before taking the vaccines, I had a very high egg count. After the vaccine, I froze my eggs and only had 4 eggs. Should I consider doing another round, or is it risky since I have the BRCA gene? I'm not sure, Jackie, what you're talking about with question 2. When you say vaccine, do you mean what? Flu vaccine or measles? I mean, what are you talking about? Are you not talking about? And it's what you're saying. I hope it's not related to the great hoax of 2020, right? So, but I have a feeling it is. Your egg count went down, probably is. Should you another round of what? Another round of egg collection or another round of injections? So I'm really sure. Now, if you have the BRCA gene, you tested, I guess, did you test? Because all you mentioned was that your mother, she had the BRCA gene. Have you tested whether you do? But anyway, the BRCA gene is not the BRCA gene, which just stands for breast cancer, BRCA. The BRCA gene is a defect in one of the enzyme system, one of the enzymes in an entire cascade of at least 7 or 8 enzymes that repair broken double-stranded DNA, which happens frequently during, mitosis when cells are. Okay, so if you get that from one parent and you don't get it from the other parent, that means it's kind of like sickle cell trait. You don't quite have sickle cell anemia, but you have the trait, there are other things, thalassemia trait. Anyway, in other words, so even in the literature of the conventional flesh-colored robots, and their boss is the AI, right? They realize that you've got to if you inherited one chromosome from one parent, then you're going to need to get a somatic mutation this time, so that you have both of the chromosomes for that particular enzyme impaired. Somatic mutation, what does that mean? Okay, that just means a mutation that you got during life, not one you inherited. Not hard. Just got to learn the terms. It's just terms. Remember, doctors are not smart. They're not intelligent. They're no more intelligent than, than the 7-Eleven clerk. They're all the same. We're all the same. In terms, just a matter of motivation, a matter of karma, destiny, will of God. But everybody, But anyway, all doctors learned was a certain vocabulary. Lawyers have a different vocabulary, and I don't speak legalese. People that work on IT, on computers, have a different vocabulary. Plumbers have a different. Electricians have a different. Who's smarter? What does smart mean? Okay, so just remember that. Okay, so anyway, that's what a somatic mutation is. So then if you had both, then you would have trouble in one of the systems. So in one of the enzymes that helps repair this double-stranded DNA. So what do we need to do? If we have only one and not the other one, what do we need to do? We need to live really healthy so we don't have any more problems with the other. What do we need to do if we have both of them? live really healthy so it doesn't affect it. What do we have to do if we have none of the BRCA? Live really healthy. Because remember, BRCA accounts for maybe 5%, maybe a little bit more of all the people with breast CFCs, right? That means all the rest don't have BRCA. So if you had breast CFCs and you have BRCA, how do we know it's because of the BRCA, or you're just like the other 95% that didn't have it? We don't know. Again, we don't know. Again, why are we focusing on this? Because it goes into the sales algorithm. What is the sales algorithm? It's the algorithm that tells the doctor what decision to make and not have responsibility for it. Why? Because you've been acting in the standard of care. And if you're acting in the standard of scare, then whatever you do is okay because you were doing the standard of scare. No liability. Now, when they say no liability, I want you to think about this. No liability. Does that mean you don't? Oh, that means legally no one can take money or property from you, is what it means. So this must only be a term that can be applied to people who have no conscience, who have no morality. What if I run over somebody and they're dead? And because of the circumstances, I have no liability. Is that going to erase, eliminate, preclude how I will feel about it? No. If I was liable and I had to pay a lot of money, would that erase? Would that balance out how I feel? No. So that whole concept is absurd. Anyway, what I'm going to tell you, Jackie, is you live healthy and don't listen. There are no such things out there of injections that can prevent anything. No injections prevent anything. One more time. No injections prevent anything. Oh, I'm sorry. They do prevent one thing. It's called good health. Yeah. But other than that, they don't. Because why? Because we were given the most I can't find a proper adjective. Immune system that is so complex and so perfect that it is incomprehensible. All we have to do is to live within our biological parameters, to live a life that satisfies all of our biological, psychological, and spiritual needs. And our immune system will not allow anything to happen. It'll keep us vibrant for a long time. How long? Well, just under 1,000 years, that's all. So, no, you don't need to do it. You need to live healthy, Jackie. You need to live healthy. And that means well, to get started, if you have no clue at all, on drlodi.com, I have this thing called Stop Making. I got to change the name. Stop Making Cancer, but it's should be Stop Making CFCs. Anyway, but on there, I just basically it's me and 3 other people, and we kind of talk about 4 major things. But you don't have to do that. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to answer your question. Living healthy means I want you to imagine what you'd be doing if it was 7,000 years ago. What time would you go to bed? What would you be doing all day long? What would you be eating? Think about it. And by the way, imagine you had no, imagine yourself naked in the forest. What are you going to eat? What are you going to eat? You're going to be a hunter and gatherer of fruit and plants, berries. That's what you're going to be, a hunter and gatherer of. These hands, we were not equipped to kill. Yes, we can choke frogs, but are we sure we want to eat the frog? And they're slippery, remember. No, you could just do what the snake does, just open your mouth and shove it in. I don't know. That apple looks pretty good compared to that frog. Frog or apple? Huh? Oh no, I don't eat frogs. I'm a steak man. Oh yeah? So that means you eat dead cows. Yeah, dead cow. No, dead cows. I eat steak. Okay. So anyway, you wouldn't go grab a cow and start choking it or take a bite out of it. So I'm just telling you, you're alone in the jungle. It's 7,000 years ago, and you're. What are you gonna eat? What time are you gonna go to sleep? That's how to live healthy. And you're gonna be moving all day, picking and all that sort of thing, picking things up, bending, all that. Right? All right, so here's a lady, Yuko, and triple positive breast CFCs, don't want to do hormone blockers. Um, what are the other options to suppress HER2? I have METs to lymph, armpit, neck, chest, lungs, abdomen, pelvis, and spine. Low dose targeted, have done low dose targeted radiation in Mexico on most places, so it will shrink down to 90%. Chemo specialist tells me I don't need chemo, and hormone blockers will clear out the lesions. I don't want to get a mastectomy, but the doctor tells me it will come back stronger if I have the breast, if I leave the breast. I believe in the power to heal. Do you have any suggestions for stage 4 triple positive? Okay. It doesn't matter if it's stage 4 triple positive, stage 4 triple negative, stage 4 prostate, stage, in other words, what is it? Okay. They're all of these CFCs are the same. CFCs are the same. They all have estrogen. Now, estrogen and androgen blockers, I want to talk about that for a moment. First of all, I understand what you're saying. And when they said that the chemo specialist, I don't want to do a mastectomy because the doctor tells me it will come back stronger if I leave the breast. I mean, come back stronger if it didn't go away. If you didn't cut it out, doctor, how's it coming back? I'm not sure what they mean by that. What they mean by that is, actually, they don't know what they mean. Could you ask them? Ask them. Say, well, how many times have you done a mastectomy and it didn't come back? Ask him. You gotta hope he tells the truth, but you'll find out if he tells you the truth. Is maybe he may, if he's had 50,000, 60,000 patients, maybe one, maybe. Anyway, okay, targeted radiation. So all the things you're doing, Yuko, is you're gonna kill it. Whether it's radiation, chemo, surgery, whatever it is, you're killing it, and you're blocking hormones, etc. You're gonna do all that. That is the military approach. That is that's on the disease model paradigm that says that there's this thing that got into me and I've got to get rid of it. Like the germ got into me, I've got to get rid of it. Well, that's not the case. There's no thing that got into you. What's happening is your body is these certain groups of cells are fermenting and they're spreading to different places because they're initially it happened because they weren't having their biological needs met, and they wound up having to survive by producing energy in a different way through fermentation than the normal way, and that's how it all got started. So now what we got to do is remove all possible causes for that. You've got to do the dental. You've got to go get a 3D cone beam CT and have it read by a real biological dentist. Okay. And there are a few in the country, and I'm gonna I think there's a list up on my website. But anyway, that's number one before you do anything else. Then you got to get rid of the parasites. You got to get rid of your colon. If you want to see if you think you're healthy and clean, do a colonic and then or take some laxatives and see what comes out. You'll see what comes out, is pretty bad, pretty foul, and that's what your body is absorbing. Every 4 minutes, it goes back to your liver from your intestines. It's called the enterohepatic circulation. It's every 4 minutes, okay? And every 4 minutes, your liver gets doused with a big wave of sewage, okay? So, and 60% of your lymphoid tissue is in your gut, so it's picking up all this stuff too. So your immune system's on fire, your liver is on fire, and everything is. Okay, how can you heal? You can't. So you got to do all that. You got to get rid of that. You got to get your lymphatics flowing. You got to have someone who knows what they're doing in lymphatics, and you got to go to bed early, and you've got to move around all day long, and you've got to start learning to meditate after you pray so that you can learn to turn off the monkey, the jabbering, incessantly jabbering monkey in our brains, in our minds. Got to turn it off because it's saying, which is suppressing your immune system. So there's a lot of things you need to do, Yuko. Not all this stuff. Don't worry about them. Want a good hormone blocker? It's called soy, miso, tempeh, edamame, natto, flax. These not only block hormones, but they stimulate the hormone that shrinks all this stuff. HER2 is one of the epidermal growth factors that's on all cells. There's 5 of them. HER2 got upregulated in order to keep the process going. It's part of the epigenetic modification that these kinds of chronically fermenting cells go through to survive. Once you pull the plug, teeth, you do all that stuff, and you start living healthy and all that stuff, it no longer becomes required and it goes away. Don't worry about that. These epigenetic genetic expressions are what they call downstream epiphenomena. Downstream epiphenomena. In other words, they are a consequence of something else. And they are there just because they are required in that particular microenvironment. You change the microenvironment, and now you'll change the epigenetic expression or genetic expression. All right. All right, so what else I wanted to talk to you about? Estrogen reset. What was this? Somebody had asked this question earlier. I thought. Oh my gosh, I've had so many root canals. Why did you say no root canal? Okay, go to Rumble TV or BitChute and watch a documentary called Root Cause. Root Cause. Root Cause. Okay? It's not the best, but it's, it gets the point across. Also, go online and look up Dr. Simon Yu. It's YU in St. Louis. He's got some videos on that you need to watch. Okay? But I'm going to also be doing a podcast with a biological dentist. Actually, the one I think is probably the best in the world. I don't know. I mean, I've met a lot. I've talked to a lot. I just never seen someone so thorough. But I'm sure there are. I'm not saying the only one. I met a really amazing guy from New York. And so there's some really good ones out there. But anyway, I'm going to have one podcast with her, and she's going to explain all this stuff. Very, very important. Okay. But root canals there should be 0 in your head. They are beyond toxic. And you all know about that, hopefully. They take out the nerves, the lymphatics, the blood vessels, and then they fill up the root, like it's just a stump, an empty stump. They fill it up with cement, and then they put a crown on top of it, and that's it. Now you've got all these microorganisms in there with no immune function because there's no blood flowing there. And they start to mutate and produce biotoxins, and they're all along some meridian. Meridians are what? They're circuits within the body, just like you have circuits in your house, circuits in your car. You got fuse boxes because of circuits. Same thing here. We got circuits. So anyway, it's all real. It all works the way it works. And root canals are just incredibly deadly. There's a book called The Root Canal Cover-Up, which you can read. But you got it. Yeah. So because they not only cause incredible immune dysfunction, but also allow CFCs to grow and to propagate and stuff like that. Yeah. 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 What was it? It was somebody that had a good. Oh, the scan. Okay, the scan is called a 3D cone beam, which is a cone beam, cone CT. Can cavities or tooth decay be reversed? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Ozone, all sorts of things. Anyway, uh, so uh, so anyway, let me talk. I wanted to touch back on that the idea of estrogen receptors and all that, because people hear the word and they think, well, that just has to do with breast CFCs or ovarian or uterine and things like that, but it's not true. In fact, if we look at men, for example, when the fetus, the male fetus, is growing, um, the now remember, estrogen receptors. There's two kinds. There's alpha and beta. Okay, alpha does one thing and beta does another. So another group of activities: estrogen receptor beta versus estrogen receptor alpha. Well, it turns out back that by the time the male fetus is about 7 weeks old, the whole urogenital sinus and stroma of the prostate, which is the context, the connective, the nest that holds the functioning cells, called parenchyma, but that you don't need to know that. But the functional cells of the prostate are held in stroma. But anyway, they're all organized by ER beta, estrogen receptor beta. Okay, in fact, it's the only detectable estrogen receptor in prostates in the fetal age, right? Okay, so by the time the male, is 11 years old, there's still ER beta, but it's only at the very bottom part, the basal part, and some of the stromal parts. Now, one of the things that ER beta does, which is very important, is that it downregulates, it degrades HIF1 alpha. Why is that important? We talked about it a moment ago. When you have low oxygen, that's called hypoxia. Hypoxia. Hypo is low, oxia is oxygen. Hypoxia. You have low oxygen, that stimulates the body, says, well, wait a minute, we don't like that. We need more oxygen, so we need more red blood cells to bring that oxygen. So the body stimulates a whole set of processes that make blood vessels grow and tissues to grow and all that. All right. Well, that's really good when you're healing a wound, but it's not really good if you have a tumor. Okay. You don't really want that. Okay. So you need to turn that down. And what turns it down is a group of enzymes called dioxygenases, which need ascorbate, vitamin C. Okay. That does. But also ERB, estrogen receptor beta, also downregulates that too. So very important. So if you're having lots of vitamin C, and you're getting you're eating things that are going to stimulate estrogen receptor beta, like soy, flax, things like that, green tea, then you're going to be in really good shape, right? Okay. Now, the ER beta, so it's in that regard, it's anti-proliferative. It slows down growth, right? And this is actually independent from its androgen concentration. Androgens are testosterone, androstenedione, the androgens as opposed to the estrogens, right? Okay. So in the adult male, the estrogen receptor beta has a suppressive role in proliferation. And then the other thing too, we know that oxidative stress, which means that there are too many pro-oxidants around, free radicals around, causing oxidative stress, which results in inflammation. We know that's a precursor to cells becoming chronically fermenting. That's how they happen. Okay. And in fact, when we're looking at prostate CFCs, the oxidative stress actually is, if that exists, it's going to stimulate an even more aggressive type of chronically fermenting cells. Okay. Anyway, The estrogen receptor beta also stimulates the antioxidant, endogenous antioxidant enzymes. Okay, I can't tell you, but anyway, here's the thing to do: the phytoestrogens, which are estrogens derived from plants, they bind preferentially to the ER beta, and that's why we're talking about how important they are. Okay. Well, it turns out that androgens, because you think about also one other thing, the estrogen receptor beta, which I didn't get back to, those receptors are on the immune system. They're on the sympathetic nervous system, which is the autonomic nervous system. They're on the blood vessels, so they open and close. That's a big part of life. They're on the bladder. They're in the lungs and the colon. So they're everywhere. So it's not just breast. It's not just so again. Now, androgen receptors, right? Because it's often talked about with, especially with women that have breast CFCs, androgen receptors. Um, 60 to 70% of women with breast CFCs have androgens. Well, one of the interesting things is there's an interplay between androgen receptor and estrogen receptor, and it's even more complicated because a lot of times androgens are converted to estrogens, right? Now, because the androgens can bind to the estrogen receptors, this will reduce the estrogen effect of growth of the alpha. So it has an anti-proliferative effect. That's very, very important. Okay, so and that's why people that have ER and AR expressing tumors, in other words, estrogen receptor and androgen receptor tumors. This is women we're talking about with breasts, have better outcomes than the ones who have just ER with no AR, just estrogen with no AR. So the AR kind of modulates it. Can it also cause growth? Yeah, under certain circumstances. So now there was another question here. Where was that? Where was that? It was called. I saw it earlier. Hang on. It's Oh, here's a real question. Quick question on electrolymphatic therapies. As you all know, electrolymphatic therapy just means they have these glass tubes, and inside they have these noble gases like argon, krypton, xenon, neon, and one of them kind of grounds on your neck, and the other one is used just above the skin and helps move lymphatics. So I've had women with really large breast tumors. After one therapy, it's like half the size because most of it was congestion. Okay, so we need to move the lymph. Remember, the lymphatic vessels are kind of the transportation system and the elimination system um, for the immune system, right? So you want to keep it clean. You want to, because remember, you will drink out of a flowing river and you will not drink out of a pond, okay? Unless you're a frog. Frogs like ponds. Yeah. And they have a hard time in the river. They get washed away all the time. So, anyway. So the question is, how often should electrolymphatic therapy be done? For example, after a questionable first breast thermography, do 8-week sessions of lymphatic electrolymph, then 3-month redo thermography, 1 month electrotherapy for maintenance. Well, no, I would do the electrolymphatic. I would do, live a healthy. This is for Marley. I would live healthy, go to bed early, move around all day long, all those sorts of things. Pray and meditate, but I'd also get electrolymphatic therapy minimum 3 times a week minimum, and then maintenance, whatever you can afford, once a week, twice a week after your thermography is clear. Wow, I missed all you guys. Organic food is highly contaminated in Thailand. Label means nothing. True. True. Well, at least if it's labeled organic, they might have tried to achieve that. If it's not labeled, they didn't even try. So, yeah. But anyway, the point is, yeah, you're right. You got to know your farmer. You've got to know your farmer or grow your own. Right. And so I agree. Not only in Thailand, everywhere. Yeah. Okay. So the question I missed at the beginning: are you creating School of Life online? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it up there, and because it's really quite a school, it's a several. I forget how many, 18, 20 modules. It's we usually take our students through it when they come. Okay. Oh, wow. The IG police just sent me a message saying I can't ask that question. What is it? What was that question you asked? Interesting. Huh. Interesting. My gosh. And somebody's telling me not to use Rumble because they banned it in France. Yeah. Did anybody ever get the feeling that we're on the wrong planet? We need to get out of here? Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, here's the question. Now, where was it? Just to answer this question real quickly, why is LDN prescribed? LDN is low dose naltrexone. It turns out that what it does, naltrexone is a drug that blocks opiate receptors, blocks opiate. Blocks opiate receptors. So somebody that OD'd on opiates like a heroin or morphine, you give them naltrexone and it reverses it, and they're okay. However, in very low doses, it actually stimulates the immune system very powerfully. Yeah. And that's anywhere from 3 milligrams to 4.5 milligrams a night at bed. Very good stuff. The only people that don't want to take it are people who are taking opiates. So what I want to find the question. Okay, here real quick. Vitamin C1 sipping 77 ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate. Reasons why one is better than the other. I've always used non-GMO ascorbic acid. Do I need to switch? Okay, good questions, Judith. Ascorbic acid is ascorbate, which is the anion with a hydrogen. That makes it an acid. Hydrogen is acid. If you take the hydrogen away and you put any other positive cation, sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium, then it's not acidic, it's a salt. But why should you use sodium instead of ascorbic acid? Because we have two transporter systems on our cells. One is called SVT1, the other one is called SVCT2, standing for sodium dependent vitamin C transporter, meaning it can only go in the cells. Our cells can only pick up sodium ascorbate. They can't pick up hydrochloric acid. Ascorbic acid, because to pick up the ascorbic acid, when it got to the cell, it would have to drop the hydrogen somehow and grab a sodium. It's kind of hard to rely on. So when you're taking ascorbic acid, your body has to somehow remove the H hydrogen and put on a sodium. So if you drop the H, what are you dropping? You're dropping acid. So that area around that area where it's being transformed into sodium ascorbate so it can be absorbed is becoming acidic. So just take sodium ascorbate. That way you can absorb it directly and not have to acidify any of the. And also, maybe you can't get it. You won't be able to put the sodium on it. So yeah. It says that my comment goes against our guidelines. My comment or your comment? I don't know. Gosh. Anyway, that's the thing with sodium. But here, the question I wanted to ask was, somebody was asking me, what about the anyway, they were doing anyway, it was it had to do with the methionine, to decrease methionine, right? Everyone has probably heard of that, right? If we can minimize the methionine in our diet, then this can help with CFCs, right? Do hydrogels lead to CFCs? At least, yeah. Okay, now, so that's a good question. So, what is methionine? Methionine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. And remember, there are 20 amino acids, and only for humans, 9 are essential, 11 are non-essential. What does that mean? The 9 that are essential, it means that we must get them in our diet, otherwise we're deficient. Once we get those 9, we now can make the other 11 from those 9. And so those are called non-essential. And just as an aside, plants make all 20, animals can only make 10 at the most. Right? All right, anyway. So methionine low diet. Now, okay, so there's some evidence to show that, okay, let's see, methionine is, and this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring us back to the proper understanding. I mean, proper, but the real understanding that we're not going to figure it out. We're not going to figure out that we should stop this, because whatever a CFC needs to survive, so do non-CFCs, healthy cells. They need the same thing. One is just an adaptive it's just they originate from the same, right? All of my health, I have all these cells that are non-CFCs. Some find themselves in a situation where they lose mitochondria and they have to adapt. They start fermenting, but they're the same thing. Okay, it's just a fermenting cell. So they all need the same thing. They all need in different. Of course, the CFCs are growing faster; so they need more of it. So they both use glucose and glutamine for fuel. Both. So I can't get rid of the glucose and the glutamine. If I do, if I successfully did that, I would die. So I can't do that. If I don't eat any glucose, my body will make glucose from amino acids. If I don't eat any glutamine, my body will make glutamine because it's a non-essential amino acid. My body can make it. So I can't do that. Now methionine, so just as a reminder about that. Okay. Now, so methionine is very, very important. Amino acid. It's what they call an essential amino acid, and it's a sulfur-containing one. Okay, so and it actually directly influences the immune system. Okay, right? How does it do that? It allows for the production of glutathione, taurine, and other important metabolites. Okay, taurine is an amino acid that's made from it that is really, really important for the heart and other situations. And glutathione, as we know, in fact, the liver really depends on that for the most, as a methionine for its glutathione, and it has glutathione is to detoxify. So kind of important. So if you weren't getting if you didn't have adequate amounts of methionine, it would kind of undo some of the effects you're getting from, broccoli sprouts and coffee enemas and things like that. So You can't get rid of methionine. Okay. Now, one of the other things that methionine does is it's actually a chelator, and it can remove lead from the tissues. Pretty cool. Why is that important? Because lead's going to cause oxidative stress, which causes chronic inflammation, which results in CFCs and other bummer situations. And it's interesting. Methionine is on its way to becoming homocysteine. And when they replace, in studies where they replace homocysteine with methionine, and there is any kind of CFC growth, it stops. Okay, so maybe it's not the methionine, or it's rather something to do in the process. Okay, and it actually turns out it has to do with the transmethylation, blah 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 blah, which we're not going to go into. So, but the effectiveness of a methionine restricted diet in treating CFCs is dependent on age, the condition of your innate immune system, the severity or extent of the CFCs, the health of your intestines, long eyebrows, and your nutritional deficits, etc. So there's so many things that interplay with it. Okay, but here, what's the point? What do we need? We need to do what we've talked about before, and that is establish balance so that the divine intelligence will make it all work perfectly. Okay, bring about balance. Okay, so if we're going to look at it, how much? Because here's the thing: if we want to do methionine restricted, how do we do methionine restricted? Because remember, it's necessary for so many things, and yes, it does have a relationship with in high amounts. High amounts of it can help actually. It can have the reverse effect on oxidative oxidative stress, etc., and actually cause CFCs to grow. Okay, now, but what is the reference for it? Well, according to dietitians, they 10.4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So the average 70-pound, which is what 150-pound, I guess 54 male, is 730 milligrams a day. All right. Well. So, and what are the high methionine foods? Well, turkey, tuna, beef, pork chops, milk, Brazil nuts, ricotta, okay, and quinoa, and those large white beans, So, but how high? How high are they? Okay. Well, and we've heard that nuts and seeds. Because if you go on a low, like that nori diet, if you go on a low methionine diet, you're going to say, well, okay, hemp seeds. How high are they? Well, 1 ounce is only 36% of the amount of methionine needed, and for pumpkin seeds, it's only 23%. Chia, 23%. Sunflower seeds, 16%. Flax seeds, 14%. Pistachios, 14%. So it's not that bad. That's the high nuts, right? Quinoa is considered high, but it's 43% in 1 cup, 27% of wild rice, etc. Now, on the other hand, let's look at turkey. 6 ounces of chicken is 195%, so you get more than you need. That's the breast. Of the thigh, you're going to get 115%. Of the drumstick, you'll get 93%. So, see what I'm talking about? Now, what they call red meat, I don't know why they call it red meat, because you stab a chicken who's supposed to be white meat, and you'll see blood come out. So they're all red meat. Anyway, for example, a beef stew, the pieces of beef, they're 110% of the methionine you need. The lamb, 106. Veal, 100%. Buffalo steak, that's getting better, only 89%. Right? Fish is good to eat, isn't it? Well, 7 ounces of fish is 204%. Salmon, and that's groper. Salmon is 200%. Snapper, 182%. tilapia, 179%, and mahi-mahi, 153%. What about pork chops? Wow, 109% for 5 ounces. 106, lean ham. Okay, well, let me see. How about kale? Well, in 1 cup of kale, which is about 21 grams, you get 0.006 of methionine. Oh my God. Spinach, what do you get if you eat a bowl of spinach? 30 grams, you get 16 milligrams of methionine. So I don't know. Why don't we just eat healthy and we don't have to even consider the whole methionine made up issue? It only exists for people who eat standard American and standard European and other diets. People that eat standard will get standard conditions. Okay. Yes, and Popeye. Absolutely. Popeye did really good with spinach. Never had a problem. Now, Wimpy, on the other hand, if you look at Wimpy, he didn't look too healthy, and he was eating burgers all the time. So, I mean, I don't know. And of course, did everybody ever hear that expression, sick as a dog? Yeah. And I bet you also heard that other expression, healthy as a horse. So if we consider what dogs eat and horses eat, we can just say, Anyway, I know it's too much for a lot of people. They don't want to think about that stuff. Anyway, you guys, listen, here's what's happening. I can't talk because I'm on all these censored platforms, but something big is about to happen. I think we're all aware of it because there are certain places, geographical locations where things are burning up with controversy and stuff like that. So anyway, it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. And I think we're about to enter a cloud of craziness. And I wish I could talk. I wish I could finally get something on, what do you call it? on Rumble so I could talk. But I know somebody was telling me they don't have a Rumble in France. So I don't know. I got to find some way. We got to do this. We got to talk. But I want to talk. Anyway, there's a big thing coming soon. We all know that. I don't know if it's in a month or two, but it's going to involve the whole world, and it's going to be big. And they've done a good job planning for it, and so it's all happening. So we're going to have to stay close. And how are we going to stay close? That's the question. Maybe those satellite radio phones. Anyway, no, not a pandemic. It's actually going to probably be a great big war. Big one. Big one. And we all know that. We all see it coming. It's biblical and it's happening. And we know that suddenly there are lots of incredible protesting in the United States for a condition. And what's very interesting is they were never protesting before. So suddenly there's a big upsurge in protesting about this, but no one's protesting, I don't know, being locked down or being forcibly injected, etc. No one's protesting that, but they're protesting something that's going on far away. So it makes me think that they never protested before. So it makes me think that someone may be helping increase that. They could be being paid to do that. Can't say anymore. It's really hard not to say what I want to say. Yeah. True. Southern borders have been open for a long time. We're full. Everything's ready. It's in motion. It's ready to be set. And so if you're in the United States, beware. And if you're in Europe, beware, because it's about to happen. And I think that we need to find a place somewhere in the world where we can be happier longer, safer longer. So hopefully I didn't violate any of the community standards. I hate, one thing I hate to do is violate community standards, because it just upsets me. I can't sleep that night. You know, I'm so concerned about community standards. I mean, community standards are everything to me, everything. But I'm sure I probably violated a few. Uh, yeah, they're being paid. I think they're being paid. They're being paid to suddenly protest that which has been going on for a long time. And there's a lot of people that have been let into the country. I don't know. They just dropped them off in big buses in San Diego and all over Texas, and they just come walking in. What is it? It's estimated to be about 3 million per year. I think that's an underestimate, but they're here. Yeah, so if you're having trouble getting the visa, don't worry about it. Just walk in. Crazy, madness, insanity. And listen, you guys, wish I could say more. But anyway, thank you. Kap kun makap. Okay, and aloha. Sawadi kap. Namaste, namaskar. Hope we're all around here for the next week. I'll be here. And yeah. Okay. So didn't get to all the questions, but it's hard. Anyway, Sawadi kap.